Thank you for joining this Posturite webinar entitled How Can Workplace Design Support Neurodivergence? Yep, we're delighted to welcome our friends at Haworth to share their thoughts with us here today. For those who are unaware, Haworth are one of the largest office companies in the world, hailing from the US but operating internationally, and with a showroom located in Clerkenwell, London. With us today, we've got Andy Dunkley, who's our UK Dealer Development Manager at Haworth, and Victor Bourdariat, who's the lead European designer at Haworth. The presentation will last about 40 minutes, following which we'll move to a Q&A session where you have some of your pre-provided questions that we'll be putting to the panel. If you've got any further questions at all, please do feel free to leave them in the Q&A box. This is the only text box in which we'll be able to see these questions, so please pop them through there. And yeah, without further ado, I'll pass over the mic to Haworth. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Scott, for introducing us. So, as mentioned, I'm Victor Bourdariat. I am a industrial designer at Haworth for the European region, and Andrew is our dealer development manager for UK and Ireland. Andrew, would you present the company first?
Yeah. Good morning, guys. Thanks for joining us along with Posturite. Very, very quick introduction to Haworth. We've been global since 1980, one of the leading manufacturers of office furniture worldwide, with sales just over 2.5 billion globally. We call them members, which is our staff. There's over 8,000 of us worldwide, currently operating in about 150 different countries. And we have somewhere in the region of 400 dealers worldwide, with Posturite being one of them. We partner primarily with the top 55 company or the top 500 companies, and we're working with about 55% of them worldwide. So we are one of the big three. So yes, we've got about 700 patents for our ergonomic seating, which is one of the features that Posturite actually loved about Haworth, and we work very, very well with them. There's about 14,000 paid volunteer hours. So worldwide, we are huge, which is great for me. And unbelievably, we're still owned by the Haworth family. So GW started in 1948 with a £10,000 loan from his parents. Dick Haworth, who's died in 2006, he's still with us, certainly in memory. And then his son Matthew now runs the business. And it's Franco Bianchi that looks after he's the president. So it's a big company, we're worldwide, and we're very, very pleased to partner with Posturite. These are our core values. We were written back in 1976, and they are genuinely written by the Haworth family. We change and move with the times, but each of these is written by the Haworth family, and we do stick to them. We do believe in our customers being so important. So I'll pass you over to Victor, and he can talk about neurodiversity. We'll go from there. Victor, over to you.
Thank you very much, Andrew. So let's start with a quick introduction on inclusive design first. And I have actually a personal story to illustrate this content. I am a father of two daughters. One of my daughters, the youngest, she is actually autistic, and she then goes to a different school than my other daughter. Some times ago, I was alone with my kids, so I had to do two different school drop-off at the same time. And after a couple of days, my oldest daughter came to me and say, "Oh, why do I need to go to my sister's school every day?" And I said, "Well, I am on my own, and I need to deal with the drop-off that way." And then she started to get very emotional and say to me, "But I feel I'm wrong to be there. Everybody is staring at me because, my uniform is different. Why I should be there? I see people looking at me, and I feel so much uncomfortable." And then I try to explain her that there is nothing wrong with her, and that's the environment that gives her this feeling, and she has completely the right to be there with her sister in that school. But then she continued to explain me that she feels weird and so much not in her place, starting to say, "I don't belong to that school." And I said, "Yes, it's true, you don't belong to that school, but that doesn't mean you don't have the right to be there, to be in that school." All to say that I found very interesting to see how the environment can impact what a person can feel and can lead that person to even feel they are wrong, while it's actually the environment that doesn't give them the opportunity to feeling part of it. So this is really the ambition of inclusive design. The inclusive design is really to ensure that everybody belong to an organization, belong to the space. Once this achievement is done, the amount of people that can use the space actually will expand. Either we talk about product or workspaces. Next slide. Also, why inclusive design? So we, based on several research about inclusive design, it is proven now that by integrating some inclusive principle into an organization, this lead to a better production. This lead to better teams with, a diversity of profiles. Would help for sure to perform by at least 35%, for example, for a team to be more performant. We know that for the millennials, they would be more engaging with a company that actually foster a sense of inclusivity in the office. When staff report feel valued, the intention to stay in a company will increase by 50%. So these are all the reasons why we feel that inclusive design is important. Next slide. Then spotlight of diversity. So we identify 4 levels of diversity. Either is it primary, secondary, workplace, or your style. So the primary, of course, is related to your neurological conditions, your ethnicity, your age, your physical abilities, your cultures and origins. Secondary would be your education, your languages, your nationality, your class, anything related to that. Then we are diverse at the workplace level. Either, we are related to a certain level in the organization, in a different department, in different location, in different work shift. We have different skills. It's an indefinite list, but that's also all of these that define the diversity. And then there is also, of course, the diversity as a style level as a person. Either you have a particular personality type, you have a style as a manager or a leadership, you have particular work habits, etc. Next slide. Then it comes to the wording of intersectionality. Intersectionality refers to a person that may experience an overlapping of disequalities in life. So, for example, you can be coming from a small ethnicity background, you could be a single parent, you could have particular abilities or disabilities, and all of those conditions may overlap and even create to you or to that person even more discrimination or marginalization in the workspace, but also in the life in general. Next slide. Here's to talk about the differences between certain wording like accessibility, universal design, and inclusive design. Accessibility really focus on make sure the environment is accessible for physical disabilities such as auditory, cognitive, physical, and visual disabilities. Universal design will tend to create one solution that can fit most of the employees and make sure the space is then accessible to the biggest part of the employees. While inclusive design instead is acknowledging we are all diverse, and then inclusive design looks to implement a diversity of experience and not only one experience to make sure nobody would be excluded from the space. Next slide. Here are some similarities between inclusive design and universal design and accessibility. So of course, all of them work to lower the barriers and make products usable by all people. So that's the common aims. They also recognize that disability can happen at a point of interaction between the people and the environment. And finally, learn from the way people adapt to their environment based on their abilities and given context. Next slide. Here are our good practice we have implemented at Haworth as our inclusive design principle. So we always look at, put the people at the heart of the process. We feel that including people in the conversation and the process would always foster a sense of belonging to all the employees. We also acknowledge the diversity and differences. We provide a variety of settings and space types with a diversity of characteristics at the core. We also want to offer choices. Where one space or one item can't support someone, we always seek to offer an alternative. It's also about flexibility in use, offering always settings and products that can be adjustable, mobile, scalable, for multi-use settings and space. This also has to be convenient and easy to use. So it's about the ergonomic, the comfort, and allow a tolerance of error and incorporate durability. It's also about perceptible information. Clear and concise information on settings or space can be used. And then we would spotlight on neurodiversity, what we are talking about today. To me, it's very important to give you this understanding of inclusive design, because neurodiversity is actually part of the umbrella of inclusive design. And that's where it's very important to me to give clarity on the wordings, because neurodiversity, we sometimes feel that relates only to neurological conditions, such as the autism, ADHD, and dyslexia, but it's actually also englobing neurotypical conditions. So we are all part of the neurodiversity, and within the neurodiversity, we can have neurotypical employees and we can have neurodivergent employees. And which means when we seek solution for the neurodiversity, we don't want to target a group, a particular group of employees, and it's actually meant to be for all and accommodate every needs, regardless your conditions. What we notice is after the pandemic, a massive increase of adjustment and inclusive workspaces. You may know, but many people actually either struggle or feel benefit to be forced to work from home for that time. And many employees got diagnosis during this time and then came back to the office with a certain difficulty. Someone with neurodiversity conditions may feel issues with all of the senses. So when we talk about either the smell, the sight, the auditory, and the touch, all of these aspects would impact their workday. Next slide. Here it's a neurodiversity explanation about, that's actually what I was explaining before, is that neurodiversity includes also all of the conditions, including neurotypical. Sometimes we also include acquired neurodiversity into this, because, for example, you may have suffered an accident, you have a brain injury, and your condition and your needs in terms of accessibility may change. So as explained before, here you have the main conditions around neurodiversity, as you have dyslexia, dyscalculia, dyspraxia, the Tourette syndrome, ADHD, or autism. What's important to notice is that none of this is seen as a deficit, and it's more a way here to acknowledge the strength of each profile to make sure they can also be, placed in the right role in the organization. So, for example, someone with no disease condition might be very good at numbers. They might excel in certain job position related to math and to numbers. Could be, I don't know, could be an IT position, could be finance. This kind of job position. While on the other hand, someone with dyscalculia would of course struggle with numbers, but they might be very good at something else, as they tend to be seen as more meticulous and attentive. So it's really here to leverage all of the strength of each profile. Next slide, please. Here comes to the stress and anxiety with the common triggers in the workplace. So the main factors are the emotional masking, new or uncertain experience, rumination or negative anticipation, overstimulating environments, expectation of social judgment, accumulation overlapping of stressors, undetected or disguised burnout, social or conversational anxiety. So now please, if you can just stay a little bit on this one. Thank you. Because I think you need a little bit of explanation. When we talk about emotional masking, it's, for example, when someone neurodivergent may try to hide his own condition, voluntary or not, but making a huge effort to be part of the social experience in the office. So they would mask their own emotion just to not show their disability. And this can lead to a huge amount of stress for an employee. New or uncertain experiences, this could be also a high factor of stress, where someone, coming in the office, you don't know where you're going to sit. It's a hot desking system. You don't know exactly which floor, which area. So all of those small aspects may actually avoid someone to come in the office, because they would start thinking about that from the way they wake up at home, because they have this uncertainty in mind, which can bring them to be negative and anticipate negativity, links to this uncertainty factor in the space. Overstimulating environment. This is also something important to consider, that sometimes if the workspace is overstimulating, that could be a huge barrier for some employees to come. Either it's the noise, either it's the colors, the temperature, anything like that that could overstimulating them would be a barrier. On the social skills, it's the expectation of social judgment. It's also can be critical depending on how a person can interact with others. Of course, the accumulation of all of those factors I just mentioned may even bring the person to more stress. And if this gets worse, it can even go up to a disguised burnout. And of course, social or conversational anxiety, this can also be a difficulty when someone is not really open to small talk and may have difficulty to connect with others. That doesn't mean they don't want to, but they may struggle to find a way to do that. Next slide. So here it comes to the sensory differences. Everyone processes sensory information differently. Neurodivergent individuals may be hypo or hypersensitive. When you are hypersensitive, you have a reduced response to the environment, which means you would seek activities and you would seek cessation. On the contrary, someone hypersensitive would respond in a very high way to the environment stimuli, and you would tend to overwhelm you in the office. It's important to highlight that the response to neurodivergent in the environment, it's not an overreaction from them or an exaggeration. It's really a consequence of their conditions. So the reaction may be intense, it might be quick, it might be long, it can also change during the day. So we can't neither really define, I would say, a pattern that could work for all. So something important to do is to warn neurodivergent people in advance, perhaps how the environment is going to be, what they should expect, how if it's over or lower stimulation. All of those warning would be beneficial, and of course always remaining calm and understanding in these situations. Next slide. And so here we come about the importance of colors and patterns, which is related to sensory differences. Colors and patterns may impact people different way, depending on your sensitivity. Hypersensitive individual can be overstimulated by relative minor sensory input, or so intense colors and patterns can easily overwhelm them. And again, it's important to acknowledge that it's not an exaggeration, and again, certain employees may lead them to too much distraction, to dizziness, disorientation, and really may prevent them to come and be part of the office environment. The pattern also can be on furniture or within the architecture, may be seen as chaotic, may be seen as illogical, and may quickly push someone to be overwhelmed. It can lead to higher disturbing and anxiety. Next slide. So this is a work we have developed within the Haworth Design Studio to think about different settings of workspaces and finishes to respond to this demand of either needing high stimulation or low stimulation. So you can see here examples of how you could treat the exact same workspace environment. By just playing with different finishes, you could create a completely different look and feel depending on the needs of the workforce. Either some area needs to be for high stimulation and others for low stimulation. So this is valid for a workspace, let's say workstation environment. Next slide. And this would be either applicable for a co-working space, an open space, as you can see like this, which is more connected to social areas, where we did the same exercise, either applying more high stimulation colors with more contrast. With, next slide, please, with either more slower, low in tone colors, just to, provide the right degree of stimulation. Next slide. So of course, this is not only about the colors, but it's also about all of the small adjustment that needs to be addressed in the office. I would say acoustic is one of the big elements to be considered. So the importance of offering acoustic pod, we can give privacy, consider to have frosted glass to increase the level of privacy, for example, in the pods. Round corners on furniture, it's important. If we think about someone having issue with proprioception and balance with their body, it's important. This kind of adjustment on the workstation is important to avoid them to hurt them on furniture. Of course, accessorization and personalization of the space, it's also important, considering today the increase of hot desking, it's always good to be able to provide some tools so people can actually get a little bit more of personality in their workstation. Work your posture, it's also important. You can see this as an example. This is a poof with a wooden base and a disc, so you can actually work your posture while you are working. Assign lockers, it's also something important to consider for some employee. It's also related to the factor of uncertainty I was mentioning before. If someone may have the need to get an assigned locker, for example, so they know exactly where their locker is, they don't have to search for a new locker, and that's already something very small you can do to reduce anxiety for someone if needed. Segregate sit and stand desk. It's also something important to consider because you may appreciate that, let's say, a height adjustable bench, if you work on that, if you work on this workstation, you may have a lot of disturbance from your neighbor that's going up and down, or your front colleague that's also adjusting the desk. So all of this, again, sort of uncertainty may lead to more stress and may avoid someone to come in the office. You can imagine you go out of your desk, grab a coffee, you come back, the settings are completely changed because who was sitting is now standing. And this kind of adjustment might be an issue. High level of acoustic, I already mentioned it. And of course, the dimmable light and ventilation, it's all other elements important to consider. In the end of the day, as much as user control you can give, the best it is, so everybody can adjust the environment to their right needs. Next slide. Here it's some insight from a social workspace, where here you're of course not on a workstation environment, but this is some key points of what you can do to adjust the environment to make it comfortable for everybody. So for example, giving some screens to create your own space and your own privacy. So for example, in that concept, you have some screens available on the wall. Anyone coming in place can grab a screen, create his own privacy for an hour or two if you need to focus. But that way you don't neither target a particular community, because again, it's open to everybody. A variety of tables height to encourage different posture. So you can see here, it's the same, actually, it's the same design, the same table in all the space, but by creating in the same space different options of posture. So you can either sit, you can either stand, you can either sit, stand. I have met neurodivergent in my professional life, where they told me they may struggle to sit for a long time, so they prefer working standing. So again, here is the idea to offer all of those solutions without, in a broader way in the office. Side screen can help also to regulate your own privacy. You can see number 4 where you have those screen on the table. So this can help you to create some privacy if you need, but they can also be nested at the end of the table, and you can then instantly create a large meeting table for collaboration, for example. Informal lounge and spontaneous collaboration. This is also important to create these spaces for spontaneous collaboration, but also providing some home-feeling lounge may help to reduce anxiety, to create some more familiar settings with a home setting. Next slide. Okay, so then we move to some research we have done on the wayfindings. If you can stay on the previous slide, please. Thank you. So actually, I would say 200 years ago, in England, we start to use those images on the pubs, and you may have wondered why they have all similar names. At the time, because the population was illiterate, you couldn't name a place by just using wording, and it was way more efficient to use images so people could identify where the particular pub is or where the particular social space, because pub was and is a social space, where the use of images and pictograms was helping the community to orient themselves in the space. Next slide. And here it's another example of how you can use the environment as an informal way of wayfinding. So, for example, here is some element from an urban environment that you may use to find your way. And I always give this example because that's also something I experienced myself. Once I was in South Italy, in small town, you are with your map trying to find your way. And actually, I realized that I was asking to people where this street was. Nobody knew the name of the street, but they knew where Francesco was, they knew the Sony building were, or they knew the pink arcades. And actually, that's what the local community is using as a wayfinding to find themselves in the city. And they don't know necessarily the names of the roads, where I feel, in a way, not being part of that community, in a way, feeling certain feelings of disabilities, because I was not able to access the way they communicate because they were using an alternative way of wayfinding. Next slide. So then the question was, how can we translate this wayfinding in the office, especially in the coffee area and open space? This is important because those public areas, they are most of the time the first areas that an employee will come through when they start their journey at work. So it's on those areas where the stress may start for someone neurodivergent. So I would say we need to acknowledge that those areas, they will never be quiet because they are noisy by essence, but it shouldn't stop us to find a way to create, I would say, a decent result of acoustic. So at least, everybody can be comfortable to use those areas. So it could be, improving the acoustic as much as possible. Create some nooks and corners would also help to give to the space be accessible to everybody. Perhaps using 1 or 2 dominant colors can also help people to navigate in the space. So this is related to the wayfinding I was mentioning before. Maintain the same furniture layout to reduce uncertainty across the office would be also something interesting to look at. And of course, the use of biophilia and mimesis to create familiarity in the workspace, it's also something important. And lastly, it's also important to consider and make sure the space is legible, because we need to think to avoid visual barriers. And again, this is also related to the uncertainty in the space. You can see, for example, here those sofas with the high screen. So if you come from the back, hopefully this one is not too high, but you may have some sofas with higher screens. For example, if you arrive in the office, you can't really see if someone is sitting on it. So this can already create a certain degree of uncertainty because you don't know what to expect behind, if someone is going to be there or not. And this is already creating a certain amount of stress. Next slide. So here it's an illustration about how we can reapproach those wayfindings, because of course we all use the conventional lettering and signatures, but perhaps we may think about alternative to help all of the employees to orient themselves in the space. And that's where we can think about a conventional pictorial signage to help you to navigate in the space. Next slide. So where you see secondly, you can play with the product, you can play with the finishes, and let's say trying to create some alternative entries rather than only the conventional signage for people to orient themselves. So it could be the colors, it could be the product, it could be the shape. And then, similar with this small community I was talking about before, then the workforce may also experience that way a sense of belonging of the space. And perhaps, you won't meet your colleague at the 23rd floor anymore, but you will meet your colleagues close to the gringo cactus or whatsoever, the way people want to appropriate themselves the space. And next slide, please. And so you could allocate particular colors to particular floors. This can also help people to meet, let's meet at the blue floor, let's meet at this area. And again, you can give different, I would say, angles of how you can connect the space with the employees. Next slide. And I was mentioning biophilia before. This is also something important to how we can link neurodiversity with a sense of nature. I briefly mentioned, for example, the patterns before, that sometimes they may be seen as as disturbing because they are too present, because they are too geometric and they are too logical. And here it's really to explain, you may all have experience to walk in the woods. You are surrounded by natures. You would not question, the patterns of what you see because everything is natural, and this will bring automatically a sense of calm to your mind. And that's what we try to use as a workspace level, is by imitating nature in patterns, in settings, in materials, would help to bring this sense of nature. Next slide. And then here is an illustration on how product can also mimic the nature and also recreate in an indirect way a connection to nature. So of course, it's not a real cactus, but by just the fact you use the shape of a cactus, you can see those dots on the cactus. They make sense in a way because we can all see that's a cactus, and then you may stop to question about it because that's clear it's a cactus, and you can understand a certain logic behind and why it is that way, rather than using completely geometrical patterns. So it's really about how product can evocate nature and bring this sense of nature. We should not limit biophilia only by putting plants, but also considering this aspect into product. Next slide. And most importantly, I also wanted to highlight the sensory mapping, because that's also a good tool to accommodate all of the needs As I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, after COVID, a lot of companies start to implement hot desking in the offices, so they completely stop assigned workstation, and this has been seen as a difficulty and a barrier from many neurodivergent employees, because they need this certainty to be able to sit where they want to and reduce this stress. So one of our suggestions is within a booking system, you can actually integrate a sensory mapping of the space. So you can actually integrate any data you may feel relevant for your workforce. So it could be including is there natural light, the temperature, the type of furniture, the colors, is it a busy or not busy area? So you can include all of this in a booking system, and then any employee can come in the office and choose the right work session they want. Oh, I need to sit in a corner because to me it's too stressful to have someone passing in my back all the time, and I can't work that way. So all of this can be addressed through a booking system where you can also pre-book in advance the workstation you need. Next slide. I also wanted to share some results from a global survey we have run last year that we received the result last month, actually. As this is a very comprehensive survey, I have just picked 3 insights for today to give you an overview of the result. So the insight 1, so what we have done just for the background is that we have globally selected at 50-50 neurodivergent employees and neurotypical employees, and we ask them the same question in regards to the environment, in regards to their need, and then we were able to compare the result in function of someone with a condition and someone neurotypical. So of course, the neurodiverse employees demonstrate a greater viability in experience with the environmental elements. So the lighting, the auditory, the acoustic, all of the sense and everything related to sensory differences, they tend to react in a stronger way than neurotypical. Neurotypical, neurodiverse, people were agreeing on the cause of the stress, but of course, for someone neurodiverse, the result was greater. Next one. Inside 2, neurodivergent responded a more extreme response to negative event. There was a higher occurrence of losing focus, becoming fixated, and angry or anxious. So yeah, so again, a neurodivergent employee may have more difficulty to deal with a negative event, and the impact on their well-being and their mind might be way more extreme than someone neurotypical. Next slide. Neurodivergent employees were significantly more likely to leave the office or avoid the office in affected by environment elements. So that's also something that was interesting to see. It's actually, even if neurotypicals may feel difficulties in the space because the light is not right, because the temperature is not right, or something bothers them, they could always find a way to overcome this and stay in the office and work. While for someone neurodivergent, it was of course more difficult, and they more likely would, leave the office or not even coming in the office because it's more difficult for them to overcome that. Next slide. And then I finished just on time with one of our motto from our VP of Global and Diversity, Francis Oxton: understand and learn from diversity to create environments that will foster a sense of belonging.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Victor. What a fantastic presentation. We really appreciate it. Lovely. So the Q&A session. So for this, we're adding a couple of additional elements to the mix. So with us on the panel, we also have David Mitchell, who is our enablement account manager. So he looks after the neurodiversity assessments from a reasonable adjustment perspective within Posturite. You've got myself as the head of furniture here at Posturite as well. And yes, here to answer questions. So we have some here at the moment. If there are any more, please feel free to add. We'll probably take this up to midday, if that's okay with everyone. Any questions that we don't get around to answering right now, we will we'll endeavor to get you a response back as soon as possible after the presentation itself. So we received an awful lot of questions before the presentation. And hopefully Victor's extremely comprehensive 45 minutes there answered a lot of them. For example, for large centralized open plan offices, how can we make the environment better for our neurodiverse colleagues? How can we adapt open plan and hot desking offices with limited funding? Hopefully you can take the principles around about the 25 to 30-minute section there on the rewatch is where Victor starts tackling some of those points and some of the key trends that you can hopefully take with you. But some that we could potentially just tap into a little bit more. We've got, where are we? Victor, there's an awful lot of questions around quiet spaces, both quiet spaces for open plan offices and also quiet spaces set aside in almost a meeting room format. What would be your advice and guidance around that, and how can it be achieved?
Yeah, of course. I mean, quiet place is important as long as it's, you know, open to everybody. So of course, a calm place when you can rest, where you can, you know, avoiding cell phones could be like a no phone zone for you to rest and be able to recharge. That's definitely something to think about. As an alternative, you may want to sacrifice a small meeting room and transform that as a calm space eventually. That's really something to think about. Yes, for sure.
Are there any particular product groups that you would potentially consider that would be able to achieve those goals?
In that space?
In a way of creating a quieter space within an open plan office?
I mean, if you really want to create a calm space, so I would recommend that it's separate to the open space, of course. And then to me, it's really also to make the space very appealing and bring a sense of familiarity with the furniture, with the layout, to make it really inviting for people to go in. So I would recommend a very curated selection of furniture.
Fantastic. Thanks very much.
Scott, I've found a very, very quick change in a workplace is the higher back sofas, just to create a quiet area. So it's still within the space, but the higher back sofas seem to work very, very well.
Excellent. Thanks, Andy. We've got a question here. How can we accommodate both hyposensitive and hypersensitive individuals in the same space?
Well, that's where really you need to create a variety of settings. So it might be about rethinking the workspace and having area meant to be for high stimulation, other area meant to be for low stimulation. I agree, you can't, again, and that's the aim of inclusive design, is to really create a variety of solutions because we are all diverse, and yeah, there are extreme between hypo and hyper, so you will never be able to do one setting that match both. So it's really about creating small noobs with a variety of solutions.
Excellent. funnily enough, one of the questions we've had is around whether or not we should exclude open plan offices entirely, and whether or not there's enough backing there from a neurodiversity perspective or an accessibility perspective to make that viable.
Well, I don't think realistic really to completely exclude open plans, because that's anyway that's the way office are made. And of course, you know, as you could see in the presentation, adjustment are possible. It's just a question of you know, of space layout and make sure we can accommodate, the space can accommodate all the needs.
Excellent. Thanks, Victor. David, a question for you, if that's okay. Should employers make reasonable adjustments for individuals who do not have a formal diagnosis?
Yes, 100%. What we're finding in the UK, actually, there's a massive delay for diagnosing now for ADHD and autism through the NHS. Big waiting lists, up to 10 years. Some trusts are actually closing the list, so they're not going to get diagnosed. Being somebody myself, I was diagnosed at 41, so quite late in life. Support can be put in place, you know, before a diagnosis. We pretty much know from a, you know, workplace needs assessment what is required for an individual. But if you put in you know, environment support already, that you're kind of halfway there. But definitely 100% support should be put in place. It's fast, it's easy, and it helps that individual and reduce stress and anxiety. Definitely.
Excellent. You mentioned workplace needs assessment there. Could you just go into a little bit more detail as to what that actually is?
Yeah, so a workplace needs assessment is a little bit more on the individual rather than the environment itself. So we're looking at where the individual has challenges with doing their working role on a day-to-day basis. And on the back of that, a report is written to detail where they're having challenges. A list of recommendations are made to basically support those challenges. And that helps that individual. A bit like where we can't get rid of the open spaces that Victor said. Then if the individual is struggling, things like a noise emitting headset that cups the ears, or the ones that go in the ears, can reduce sound around them. So there are other ways we can help the individual rather than just the environment as well.
Excellent. Thanks very much, David. Sorry, I'm just filtering through the list as the questions come through. How receptive are, this is probably another question here for Haworth. How receptive, and myself probably, how receptive are employers under current financial stresses to thinking about workplace design and layout?
So to me, I think it really depends on a particular organization, but to us, it's not about massive adjustment. We believe that small adjustment would already help. So it's not necessarily about having the most stunning and outstanding office. Of course, it would be ideal, but there is small adjustment possible that I mentioned in the presentation, like make sure you can provide privacy in a pod, make sure you have the right level of acoustic. All of those small adjustments are possible without creating a massive restructure of a workspace, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, your presentation did a great job of breaking down themes and trends that could be utilized even without the purchase of new equipment. Just on that as well, for those that aren't aware, when you are buying new equipment, you can very much play with the upholstery on that. So not all chairs come with the same fabric every single time. For example, you can switch that up to a fabric in the same group or the same upholstery band, but have 20, 30, 40 different color options that you can use to play with to help integrate that product a little bit better. Excellent. Oh, even more questions. Sorry, bear with me. I'm terrible at multitasking. This might be my worst nightmare. Are acoustic boosts effective when there is increased noise in the environment around you? Possibly another question.
Yes, acoustic boost. Yeah, acoustic boost is a to us is a must-have to respond to this concern about open space. Of course, boosts are very important. mainly also because, you know, since we came back in the office and a lot of companies implement hybrid work, we tend to spend way more time in virtual calls than before. Probably I would say 5 years ago, we were more meeting in person. Now it's more something on an hybrid base. So we tend to spend more time on calls, and having someone in an open space constantly in call while you are trying to focus, that's really not good. So yes, for sure, the use of both is essential.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Victor. There are so many more questions here. A lot of them are, what we'll do is we'll package these up a little bit, split them down into various sections. There's an awful lot related to access to work and how Posturite can support on that arm through our enablement division. There's an awful lot here with regards to specific product options at a budget. Again, that would be Posturite's okay.
We lost you for a second then, Scott.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, terrible internet. So yeah, I was just saying we'll package up those answers for you for the remaining questions that unfortunately we've not had a chance to get to. But yeah, a huge thank you to Victor and Andy at Haworth for sharing their expertise with us. Absolutely brilliant presentation. We really appreciate it. A huge thank you to all you guys for joining us today. We hope you found the content as interesting and useful as we did. If you please just take a couple of minutes to complete our webinar survey, which will appear after the session ends, it'd be really great. The feedback can help us plan and improve for future sessions. If you want to explore any of the content discussed today in more detail, please reach out to us at Posturite, either via your account manager or via the Contact Us feature on our website. Again, Posturite's furniture team are here to support with any office design and standard furniture requirements, and we can link you in with Haworth as requested if there are any questions on the specific products you've seen in some of those presentation slides. And also Posturite's enablement team are here to help support with any neurodiversity individual reasonable adjustment requirements. But yeah, concludes our webinar today, and thanks very much for coming, and have a great day and a great week.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.